Hey, Bart. Yeah, Bart's pointing at me because we have a question for you, and that is this. Addressable advertising, TV advertising, is a very important tool in the fight for advertising budgets. People are answering, or some people are answering, that is addressable TV advertising is a very important tool in the fight for advertising budgets. I'm surprised that there's a good 3% that disagrees with this, even though the presentations we had up till now were saying more of the 70%, correct? All right, Bart, I guess this is what you're going to talk about.
Good statistic to begin with. So I've been asked before starting the panel discussion to give a brief intro, and it's about the state of addressable advertising in the US. About last year, we went with ACTA to visit New York to better understand the state of addressable advertising in the States. It was at the moment that AT&T was trying to buy Time Warner. You have to know that in the US, verticality is a fact. What does that mean? In fact, that over time, the big cap market companies, in fact, which are the telcos, have been gradually taking over some of the famous broadcasters in the US. Why? Because content is part of their strategy in the battle for the consumers. And they're in a very good position also because with the 4-screen asset, that is television, desktop, tablet, and a smartphone, in fact, they are going to try to defend their market share. Also because mobile consumption of video is booming in the States, mobile will be an important asset for the future. Now, what we had there is we had some presentations of the most important telcos, broadcasters, as well as the data and tech companies, which are Freewheel, Videology, and Simul Media. And all those companies agreed on the fact that 2016 was, in the US, the tipping point for addressable advertising. Why? Because, one, the critical mass has been reached in the US. Around 50 million households in the US are AA-enabled. And on the other hand, the telcos, which are tech companies, really want to leverage their technology and make AA possible in the States. Now, maybe first some statistics. The US television industry is worth $175 billion US. The publicity industry for television is around $75 billion US dollars, which is about 120 times bigger than Belgium. Addressable advertising counted for about 2% of the total TV ad revenue in 2016. Now, the forecast for the more, let us say, conservative people is that in 2020, in the US, AA will count for around 10%. The more optimistic tend to say that it will be more around 30%. What is a fact is that in 2020, 70 million US households will be AA-enabled. Now, why is AA so important for those companies? They think it's an important asset for the battle of the TV ad revenues. Everyone knows that the GAFA is also eager for those kind of revenues, and for them it's an extremely interesting weapon to do a little bit the same thing as those tech giants are doing. In fact, is proposing targeted advertising and launching their programmatic approach. Now, what is important for AA is we believe that AA, in fact, is permitting to hit every stage of the marketing plan with great efficiency, and that with media, which is television, which is one of the biggest or most performing media in the world. On the other hand, in the B2C sector, is one thinks that one can limit the churn by offering less but more personalized publicity. You have to know that in the States, the advertising clutter is enormous, And a lot of people are unbundling. That means that they are taking less expensive subscriptions and also tend to go over to OTT services like Netflix and Hulu, which are advertising free. So to keep the money in the ecosystem of the telcos and the broadcasters, AA is an important battle. Now, all those experts that we saw in New York agreed on the three main challenges for AA. This is first, getting the targeting right, secondly, getting the pricing right, and thirdly, in fact, getting the ROI measurement right. So these are the types of questions that I'm going to propose also to the panel of experts here, and I'll begin to introduce them to you. If I can have the slide, or I just... Nope. Okay. Okay, there it is. In fact, for the public, from the right to the left, we have Luc van Wichelen, who is Media Director Benelux from Mondelez. We have Bruno, who is Managing Director of Karat, part of the international network Dentsu. We have Bart Swemberge, who is Head of Smart Advertising at Proximus. We have Bart Kobbart, who is Head of AA at Telenet. And we have Tom, who is CCO at SBS here in Belgium. Just a little one, we have two Barts, so I just have to invent something. So since Bart, we have, yeah, well, three, but I'm not in the, not in the, in the seats. So I'll just say when I talk to Bart from Proximus, I'll call him Smart because he's head of the Smart, so that's an easy one. So maybe the first question, in fact, is for Bart. Can you please explain what AA really means in practice?
It seems like a simple question, but if you go to the technicality, it's quite a complex process. It all starts with the advertiser or the agency. So addressable advertising is about targeting and knowing who you want to target. So that's the first important question. Who do you want to target and when? So once you've defined that, who you really want, and we can have an immense range of parameters, then the second thing to do is, how are we going to relate that to our set-top boxes? Because the purpose is we are going to address them or target them through the set-top box on TV. So that's the first thing. We match that. We know on the target group that is selected which set-top boxes are eligible for the campaign that is then set. Each day, we upload every set-top box with all the ads where the set-top box is in the target group. So that's one thing. The second thing is, if we want to go and replace ads during live linear TV, because we're talking about live linear TV, then of course it's very important to know when. When are the breaks? When are the seconds to replace? And that's a broadcaster story. So they decide which ad can be replaced on what time frame, on what day. And they integrate in, and now it's get really technical, into their SCSI signals, where that will exactly be. So there's a campaign, there's a set-top box, there's a signal. What we do is we match those three. At a certain point when the viewer is viewing and he picks up the signal, there's a possible ad break, then there's a call to the ad server and okay, a huge theme where it says, can I show or replace something right now? And that is what we do at that point, due to what parameters, to what frequency, and so on. At that point, we do it on the frame accurate. We replace the ad by the ad where the set-top box was targeted for. Okay, thank you. That's clear. For Smart, can we just compare Belgium to the other European countries? How far are we with the technology for addressable advertising in Belgium?
Well, I think it's clear that Sky AdSmart in the UK is ahead of us. They have a couple of years experience. But if you look at, for example, Germany or the Netherlands, we are ahead of them, I think. Our friends from Telenet are already live with SBS on live television. Proximus is coming soon as well. We're going into a pilot for replay on the set-top box by the end of the year, and then next year we're going to do live set-top box replacements, let's say in the middle of the year. So for once, I think we'll be quicker than the Netherlands, and that's really a good thing for Belgium, and that's really great. Just compared to the States, as a general thought, I think that our business is is dominated by tech, by technology, and I think as a consequence, things are going much faster than they used to do. You used to think like 10 years ago, YouTube was in the States, and then we used to say, well, it's going to take them like 5 years to come to Europe, so we have 5 years' time to react. I think due to the fact that you are tech-driven, things are going much faster, and it's an opportunity for countries like Belgium to be ahead of things and really be quicker and more agile. So,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. Bart, at Telenet, is limiting churn one of the objectives of also introducing AA at Telenet?
Not directly. I think the reason why we invested so much in addressable advertising is because we think it's a tool for the television ecosystem to keep the budgets in the TV ecosystem and in the local TV ecosystem, where we see a flee now to all the international players. So I think we think it can be a very important tool. On the other hand, of course, digital TV and entertainment is one of our core businesses at Telenet. So that's the main reason why we want to keep those budgets into the TV ecosystem in Belgium, because we can be very proud on what we do on TV. Not we Telenet, but I mean the whole Belgian landscape. We have such high quality content, and that's still why so many viewers watch local channels. But high quality content comes with a price, so those budgets are really, really needed to keep up that high standard. And if we talk about churn at Telenet and so on, the reason why people are watching, and the vast majority why people, our viewers, our clients are watching TV, is for that really a premium product that TV is. And that's for us the most important in that case.
Okay, thank you. I see that I forgot to put the questions on the screen, so I'll just do this rather quickly now. Sorry for that. So for Bruno, what do you think that the success will be of AA in Belgium in the near future and a little bit more long term?
Okay, thanks for the translation on screen, but I did follow you. Well, to start with the end, maybe we could tackle 5% of the total TV spendings, but this is maybe not the most interesting or important at this stage, because we are nearly nowhere for the moment in Belgium with regards to investments, due to the fact that technology is being elaborated right now and testings are running. At term 2020, it could be fair to be around 5%, which is less than the projection for the US. Definitely in Europe and in Belgium, we are not in the US. You have there fairly more fragmented TV audiences than here, also due to the fact that there are more than 300 channels there in the US. Why it's not the case in Belgium, you have 3 main channels per region, I would say. And as we've seen this morning, that TV remain a massive medium in every European market, and there should be a necessity to the scenario of interactive advertising and addressable advertising on TV. While on one hand, TV is used for mainstream branding or business campaigns, and on the other hand, when you want to reach individuals for interactivity and also personalization of content and messages, well, one-to-one devices is fairly more attractive for the moment, and the cost per view is also an important factor. So I think it will remain segmented in certain specific strategies and approaches and limited below the 10% for specific cases.
Okay, thank you. Luc, do you agree on that, or you have any comment on the figure that Bruno is putting up front?
I wouldn't dare to question the figures of Bruno.
Okay, good. Luc, what do you think are the key success factors and the pitfalls for AA?
Well, I think that there are obviously the key success factors. There is first of all the must-haves. if we implement a new system in the market, it should run smoothly, it should run perfectly. I think we should prevent to create additional complexity for advertisers, for agencies, and it should fit fully into all legal systems, whether it's data privacy, GDPR. We count on this. I think that that's just the must-have. It's a bare necessity. If you look at the success criteria, I think data quality should be optimal. Data quality will be different. We have today different systems. We have a Telenet system, we have the Proximus system, but I think we also have Medialaan, who have a kind of addressable advertising. We are going into different systems, and I think data quality is going to be key. It's got to be credible, audited, and transparent. Same for metrics. If we look at the Google and Facebooks of this world, one of the things we tell, or we always keep saying, is that their data are not transparent. I think you can make the difference on this one. In the beginning, it might be a bit more difficult. I understand from SBS Telenet that it's going to be mainly your own data you're going to report. Ideally, it should all go into the overall reporting, because once again, what we as an advertising, we are looking for is simplicity, just to make sure that we know who we're talking to what extent we are talking to. At the same level, I would say make it future-proof. Programmatic buying, programmatic might come one day. I don't know when and how fast. But then also looking at the ecosystem, I think it's the system or the business model should be sustainable. In the beginning, it's going to be looking into all different directions, a lot of trial and error. I'm afraid that there will be a lot of intermediate companies coming up and creating a lot of consultancy services, complexity. In the end, we should get rid of this. But then one of the main success criteria for me is acceptance. Acceptance by the viewer, but also acceptance by the public opinion. Today, it's on the borderline between privacy and relevancy. And I think it's our task as advertiser, as agency, but also as creative agency, to make it relevant and to communicate very well to the viewers, but also a public opinion, that this is going to add relevancy. We should not make the mistake we did in the past, just bringing broad TV commercials in, well, what we did in the past, just bringing them online. We should rethink our model, and when we go into targeted or addressable advertising, we should come with other publicity. Take the advantage of being more targeted to also bring our commercials in a more targeted and closer way. This is going to be an opportunity for us as an advertiser to come closer to the consumer. And that's where I think one of the pitfalls is we should not approach this as only a technical thing, but we should really include all the creative agencies as well. Because I think behind the technical evolution, there's a lot of creative opportunity, and integrating creative reflection, creative agencies as from the beginning into this reflection is going to be key.
Thank you, Luc. Talking about metrics.
Can I just?
Sorry.
As speaking from the other side, we have completely the same ambition. So I completely agree with what Luc said. Also, in all the steps that have to be made yet, we just started this journey. We've been working on this for the last 2.5, 3 years, where Sky did it for 9 years. We have now launched, and of course, there are several steps to be made in the very near future. If all the criteria, the measurement, the transparency, the data quality, and so on, we're facing a lot of challenges with the GDPR, but our ambition is to be the top standard certainly in Europe, that's not the world. So that's what we're aiming for sure.
Thank you. Talking about metrics, for some, let us say, technical reasons in the measurement system of today, AA falls out of the audiometry. And we know that in the world of television, where audiometry is an important one, to be able to say it's an okay thing. Well, how are we going to cope with it? How are we going to try to solve this problem from a research point of view? Bruno.
Yeah, it's a good one. Technically, and to stay pragmatical, it's not today feasible to integrate the data of addressable advertising in the audiometry. So there are two possibilities, or we make audiometry evolve and profoundly change, which will cost much to everyone in the room. Or we pragmatically maintain the current tool and we plug big data complement to the audiometry by databases association. It costs also a little bit. It's being elaborated now as well. So I think that the crucial issue we meet today is the aggregation of the total video sources, and there are 6 of them. Speaking about also fixed and mobile devices. So the point is there. We are not ready in Belgium, but for once, nobody is in the world. No one has found a solution, so we have to stay patient. But for the moment, we can plug into the audiometry manually, I would say, the results of addressable advertising coming from one hand the broadcasters, speaking about my friends here and not the channels, and on the other hand, of course, the results that the advertiser will get from these actions.
Okay, thank you.
Just maybe a quick note on that. I think it's not only about targeting. I think addressable TV is much more than just targeting people. I think it's about ad serving all of the TV spots individually and having individual metrics on it, and being able to do storytelling, capping, stuff that you don't even need to use targeting for. And I think it's much broader than just targeting.
Yeah.
And that will also open possibilities in terms of measurement, for example.
Okay, thank you for the precision. In the States, there's a sort of battle against the GAFA, or the GAFA who is attacking, let us say, what they call the legacy media. Do you think, Luc, that AA is an important asset to fight Google and Facebook in this world? Luc?
I always find it a strange question. Is this going to be the answer to tackle Google and Facebook? It's like there's nothing else in the world. Google and Facebook, they're there. They will stay there, I think. It's not about tackling them, it's about working and starting from building on our own strengths as a local TV industry. If you look at Google and Facebook, obviously they are working in a social environment. They are exploiting their targeting capabilities, whether it's on a more or less individual level in Facebook or more aggregated level in YouTube or Google Display Network. If you look at targeted television, it will be, depending on the system, it will be targeting on a household, it could be targeted on individuals. Also, how the individual will use targeted television. Is it on the home screen, the big home screen, or is it on his own personal screen? It will all make a difference, but I think we will make the difference as a local industry, building on our strengths. And it has already been said, we have a very rich TV audience, TV landscape in Belgium. We have the advantage or disadvantage to have 2 cultures in Belgium. We can really make content locally relevant. We can bring advertising in a local context. It's about content, which is the talk of the town. It has been said also today, the day after. So bringing the context and making the context more relevant will make sure that consumers are looking at television. And in the end, that's going to be the reason why we keep our advertising spend at television. Not because suddenly television is going the big channel to target, whether it's going to be 5%, 10%, or 15%. It's not that part that's going to be the solution. You also have to concentrate on the other 85%.
Okay. Tom, which kind of advertiser do you think you're going to attract with AA?
Well, in our perspective, and that's the reason why we did this project over the last couple of years, in our perspective, this is going to really bring us a wide variety of advertisers, not only new to TV, so that it's going to be the local small players that don't have the access to national TV that now can come to national TV, or the very small niche players, thinking about luxury brands that now also have all the beautiful content and they can go to TV. But it can also be the big advertisers at the moment that have smaller local brands that are not nurtured enough. So we really believe there's a wide variety and a lot of possibilities. And that's why we strongly believe, as what we see in what happened at Sky, is that in addressable advertising, they saw 70% new advertisers coming in. So we really believe this is going to open a wide new world for us.
Okay. And how are you going to position AA compared to broadcast television?
Compared to?
Broadcast television. So the broad reach versus
well,
AA.
Of course, it's going to be much more targeted. So in that sense, it's going to be much more focused on conversion. While, of course, we still stay with the linear TV, we still stay with a very strong, or like what we heard and what we've seen from Mark Ritson, the strongest brand builder with the biggest eyeballs. So we really see this as a nice add-on, an extra tool on the belt of the advertisers that can really bring more variety, but can also strengthen each other in terms of tools. Not that like one is going to stop the other, or one is going to turn into the other tool.
Okay, thank you. And based on which data are you going to offer in the short term and in the mid-long term AA?
So, at the moment, we're working together with Bisnode. We have almost 100 attributes that we can combine in all kind of ways. So this is giving us access to a lot of strong data. I think a lot of our advertisers in the room already worked with data with Bisnode on a daily basis. So we really believe this is one of the strongest partners we can have, also GDPR compliant. But of course, in the future, we have to see with Telenet how we can enrich these data. This is not happening for the moment. Unlike what we have seen and read in the newspapers, this is not happening as we speak. And then on top of that, Bisnode also has the quality and the possibilities to do on top of their normal fixed attributes, which, by the way, are included in the price. They also have a really very strong lookalike modeling that you can also use, and that can really make sure that every advertiser can really define and target the addressable household that they want.
Okay. Yeah.
Coming back to one of the key success factors, quality of data is key. So in our perspective, I think we have to work with the best data partners, with the most relevant data partners and relevant data. There's been a lot of talking a couple of weeks ago about viewing behavior, something we don't do yet, but certainly is in the plans. You might have a bit of a worry how the people would react on using that. It has been in the press, in all major newspapers. It has been on national TV, and the people do not opt out because they know it. So we either had the last 2 weeks we had more opt-ins than before. So it's a positive situation where we're in, and where even viewing behavior is becoming generally accepted as a data parameter.
Okay. I have a small question for Smart, which wasn't necessarily prepared, but it's in the line of what we discussed. Companies like eMetrics in Germany, who combine different data sources, do you see that kind of an initiative happen here in Belgium?
Well, indeed, eMetric in Germany is an interesting case, where you also have a telco in the joint venture delivering their data. I think in general, I think as an industry we'll have to work together, that's for sure. So as Proximus, we are national, so we have a deal with all of the main broadcasters, both in the north and the south. But I also think that, and maybe I'm gonna go ahead of the next question, but I also think that we should work together with Telenet. It just happened that we are big competitors in a small side business called telco. And normally we shouldn't be in the same room, and definitely not without a lawyer holding our hands. So, but I do believe that we need to align with Telenet on technical matters and really have an ecosystem that makes sense and is simple for the advertisers. So yeah, things like a metric in Germany, it could be possible in Belgium to some extent. So that's the future should tell.
Do you have any idea who should take the first initiative there?
The ecosystem.
Okay.
Well, maybe Tom, you are.
No.
Okay.
Honestly, we because of both our Belgium is a very particular country, and you have a lot of a few dominant but highly dominant players, which makes that, as Bart says, we are technically not allowed to speak to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't.
So only on technical matters, and if there's a clearly high demand from the ecosystem, from the market, then it might pass those regulations.
Okay.
Then maybe we should design somebody or dedicate somebody in the ecosystem. I would suggest it's the agencies to take this role and enforce a tool harmonization across both parties, bringing us simplicity.
Yes, with pleasure.
All right.
We just have to detect resources and budgets for proceeding, so.
Okay. Next question. Tom, are you going to move from media metrics more to business metrics in the way you're going to sell your inventory in the future via AA?
Yeah, like I said, on AA, of course, the most important metrics is next to the frequency and the reach is, of course, the return on investment, on which and on several cases we already work together with the advertisers to really do a full close-the-loop calculation based upon their numbers on their website or their sales. So indeed, when you're talking addressable advertising, or like we call it SBS Smart Ad, then we see that that return on investment is the most important one as we are talking about conversion and we're not talking about branding. But like I said, for the rest, it's just part of the marketing mix. It's one extra tool on the belt, and this is the conversion enhancer, and next to it you still need a branding medium.
Okay. Since television is considered as the branding media by excellence, and since in AA we're maybe going to look at it in a sort of short-termism, let us say conversion metrics, won't we have an issue on the pricing at that level? That one can think that it's too expensive, or because we're not necessarily taking into account the brand building capacity when we're doing in the short-term metrics?
But what we see for the moment, because we have a fixed price for the moment of 100 CPM, as a lot of people in the room know, is that if you're cutting away 85–90% of the waste, that per campaign, given the fact that you cut off all the waste, per campaign it's still cheaper to do an addressable advertising campaign than versus just doing a linear one. Of course, cost per contact is higher, but that's the fine line, and that's the balance that we're looking for. So to be very clear as well, the 100 CPM, the fixed rate that we're having now, as of early next year, we'll change that, and it will depend indeed. If you're only cutting off 60%, it will be probably, cost per CPM will be probably a little bit cheaper than if you're cutting off 99%. Mm-hmm. So, but that's a kind of calculation and formulation that we're creating as we speak, and that's something that's going to be rolled out into the market in Q1.
Okay, well, it's a nice one to, also.
Just want to add to this. Yes, it's true, if we cut out all the waste, it's going to be cheaper. The big question we as an advertiser or as agencies, we have to ask ourselves is the waste really waste? Mm-hmm. If tomorrow we are able to target 18–44, how many brands would be happy not to talk anymore to the 45 plus or whatever? Because today, very often we target, we say that there is waste, but in the end, there are also consumers, depending on the brand, depending on the service, depending on the sector you're in. But that's going to be the main question, and as always, fair pricing is a question of.
It depends a lot on the brand that you're advertising. If you're Porsche and you're advertising to 100% of the population, only 5% of the population can afford it, so there's not going to be any value in the waste to be had, unless the guy who wins the lottery tonight. But normally the waste is the waste. In other brands, indeed, it's a bigger debate, is this really waste or not?
Maybe the last word for Bruno, and the question is, in fact, how we're going to evaluate AA as an efficiency media and as an effectiveness media. A little bit.
Yeah, the answer is pretty much simple. Return on investment can only be measured by data or the declarative mode. And actually, it's not typical to addressable ads, but to any kind of Marcom investing, and it tackles the problem of the total attribution. Meaning by this, we cannot prove at a certain stage whether this ad, a little bit like the last click via Google, is responsible of the purchase. It has been said this morning, supporting a brand is a midterm work and process. And once you are confronted with an addressable ad, if you positively click and buy the product or subscribe to the service, is the result of the overall ecosystem. But it doesn't answer to the question. You do that via metric survey that are also midterm working and pretty much expensive. And on the Belgian market, the very issue is not methodological, because these methodologies exist, but you have to find in this fragmented market the budget for investing in such a survey the same amount that in France or Germany, because it's a fixed cost.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. We have to conclude because our time is up. Maybe a little summary of what I've heard here within the panel is that AA is clearly a complementary product to broadcast publicity. AA is an interesting opportunity also to attract new type of customers. I think the telcos also see that AA as an important tool to protect the local television ecosystem, which is important for them. We think Belgium is in a good position on a technical level. The solution for the data challenge could be a consortium approach, so someone will have to take probably the initiative there. AA will be evaluated on efficiency and on effectiveness, but let us not forget that waste is a double word in that. And the short-term metrics will be leading in the evaluation of AA, which can endanger a little bit the total TV value equation. And I think in the future, we will still have a lot of discussions on the price that's worth AA as an investment tool in the sales or the future of brands in Belgium. Thank you very much for your presence and for your collaboration, and see you around.
So, thank you very much, Bart, for leading this debate.
Thank you.
I'm going to shake your hand. There we go. Give him a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Bart de Pauw.